Now if I move my little dinosaur, move my little plant. When we talk about something that's flat packed, we're talking about taking something out of a sheet of material and being able to fold it up. So earlier in the year when we did the isometric cube project, we were talking about how can we draft the squares, or like a six-sided flat diagram on a sheet of paper and then fold it up into a cube. With this, we're thinking a very similar way. We kind of have 6 sides, and if we were to cut it and score it in certain areas, we can fold it up into a shape. So if you remember, earlier in the year I had like a little house. I don't even know where that is right now. I can run and grab it later. But it was like a little package design I made. This is very eerily similar to that. My basic concept for like a greenhouse is a like a A-frame house that I can put my little planter, my little flower pot into with its drip plate. And it may be a little bit hard to see because I have white on white right there. So with regards to a sketch, you're thinking about what sort of greenhouse shape you want, but you're deconstructing it so you can see every surface at once. So when we look at this, I can see like a little sketch of my planner in there. You do not need to do that. But what I do want you to think about is how big is this thing. So I was thinking maybe it's a 2" by 2" square on the bottom, and I actually forgot about the bottom piece when I drew this. There should be another rectangle down here somewhere, and I can just add that right now. And I am also doing some dimensions for the height. So I'm thinking maybe it's going to be roughly 3 inches tall. And then for the pitch of the roof, that little A-frame, 0.75. So it's an A-frame house. I know that I have like a cutout. That's why I put those red lines there for you. You do not need to do that. I know that I want to make it one solid piece off the laser cutter, and that's one of my like requirements for you in this project. I want you to have these blue lines here as engraves, so when you take this off the laser, you can just fold it up and glue it together. That's the beauty of designing for the laser cutter. So I have some windows. I have a couple windows in the front. If you notice on the back and one of the top pieces, they don't have windows, but I am kind of saying up here, okay, maybe I won't glue this down, and it can be a door that like opens up and closes, maybe as like a vent. And with regards to these windows, I could probably put in like saran wrap or kind of like a milk carton material, some sort of plastic. So I'm just putting some notes here. I think also right here I say for the windows, this distance between the edge and the window itself is maybe like 3/16 or 3/8 of an inch to like 4 millimeters. That's probably actually 3/8, not 3/16. So I'm just giving myself some basic reference for like how I want this thing to look. And if I look in Onshape, I already have my flower pot that I designed last time. You can design around your flower pot that you created last time. You can design around mine if you want to, whichever you want to do. But we are working in Onshape, so it's best to think about something that already can exist in the world, or something to build around. So now that we kind of have a reference for this, what we're looking at, we can kind of talk about some brief requirements. When you do your sketch, ideally understand that this thing needs to fit on the laser cutter. So we have that constraint of 12 by 18. Put in some rough dimensions. Inches or millimeters is cool. I really have no preference. It's whatever you're comfortable with. I would actually check and see like, hey, what are my workspace units in Onshape before you commit to what your dimensions are actually going to be. Talk about where cut, engrave, and raster might be relevant, and then like there's some additional things you might want to think about. So one is, how are we going to glue this thing together? For mine, I have a note that's just like, I'm going to glue it with hot glue. That's cool. Do you have any doors where it's going to open or close, or like a hinge that you need to care about? So I have this idea that, and it's a requirement, that you're gonna be able to maybe actuate that door, open it or close it, either by hand or with a motor at some point, and you can actually, like, if it gets too hot, make your greenhouse cooler by opening that vent, or maybe even like turning on a fan or like a little motor inside the greenhouse. So like, if you want to build that into your sketch, I didn't really build it in too much, you can. Again, I am talking about the window up here. Down here I'm talking about the glue, and you kind of can't see that, but I am saying I'm going to use hot glue just to glue this thing together. So the greenhouse, the way we want to design this thing, it needs to be a flat pack. So it needs to be something that folds up together and we can glue it, and then it's done. It comes out of a sheet good off the laser cutter. Again, the beauty of the laser cutter and designing the way we can for the laser. It should include a window. You can just do one window, you can do many windows, and I say here it can be a dropout. So when we cut this thing, and I'll go back to my desk camera, this area right here can just fall out and we can throw it away. Again, we'll maybe glue some plastic, saran wrap, something behind it to make that window. And I would like you to include a vent. So windows, vent, make it flat pack. So before we get too far into Onshape, I just want to show you maybe like what this thing kind of would look like if it were laser cut. Again, I don't have access to either my laser cutter or the school laser cutters, but I do have an X-Acto knife and some cardboard. So I did cut out my diagram for a sample that I made on Onshape, and then I cut it out by hand. I didn't cut out all the windows, but just so you can see what this thing would look like, this drawing will look something like this when it comes off the laser cutter. Okay, so I can hot glue this together. Ideally, I would have some extra windows, and I can pop my little planner in there. Again, mine's quite tiny compared to some of yours, so you're just gonna have to think about that. And I'm good to go. Now, it's not entirely big enough for me to put like a lot of motors or servo motor or anything in it, and we'll talk about that maybe in a couple weeks, but it is a proof of concept. Like, I have a model here, and this is what would come off the laser cutter. So between this and this, we have a little bit of work. It's actually really not that much work. Onshape does a ton of the job for us to get a file ready for the laser cutter that gives us this. So